Okay, we're continuing on with our last property, which is the distributive property. And yes, like in real estate, it has to do with something you own, but this time we're owning not houses that have to be split apart, but numbers and variables that need to be split. So let's look and see what that looks like. The first reason that I would want to distribute something is just to make a number easier to work with. In this case, let's say I needed to multiply 315 4 times. And if I want to do it in my head, I can split it apart because it's pretty easy to say 300 times 4. I could do that in my head. It's 12, add 2 zeros, 1200. Well, I still have the 15. I could do 15 in my head. Twice 15 is 30, so 4 times 15 is 60. So all I have to do then is add 15 times 4. So I have split it apart, the 315, so that I have two numbers that I can do in my head. Now obviously then I have to add them back together, so I would have 1200 plus 60, and I can do that in my head. These only are good for splitting apart numbers that I can do in my head. That's the only purpose. How about 2050 times 5? Well, I think you could probably figure out 2000 times 5. 2 times 5 is 10. Add 3 zeros. And what's left over? 50 times 5. And of course, that if that was money, that would be $2. In this case, it's 200. And then I just add those back together. Here's 2-digit by 2-digit. Well, thankfully, the 30 has a 0 on it, so I'm still in the ballpark of being able to do this in my head. So we'll make it 60 times 30. So that's 6 times 3, add 2 zeros. And 7 times 30. 3 times 7, add 1 0. Then add them back together. So there you go, mental math. There is, though, because we're in algebra, and now on the next page, I can't use an X anymore because I'm going to start using algebra. There is another purpose. So now I'm dealing with algebra. I want to simplify an expression. My first expression, 3 times f minus 6, can be rewritten so that I have multiplied what's outside the parentheses by both of the items inside the parentheses. I have a variable and a constant, one of which I can solve, and the other which obviously I cannot, so we say we're just simplifying this. So because the 3 is right next to the parentheses, I know I'm multiplying. So I'm multiplying 3 times f. How do you write that algebraically? You write it as 3f. Then I'm taking that 3 and I'm doing the same thing to the minus 6 or plus negative 6. And I'm going to rewrite that. And that's fine if you want to get in the habit of writing plus a negative. You definitely will be in 7th grade. And then, of course, we want to simplify that because we can multiply 3 times 6. We know that part. And there would be my final answer. All right. You notice the next one is in the same format as this one right here. I have a coefficient, a variable, and a constant. Coefficient, variable, constant. That's already in that format. Well, distributive property says I can go the opposite direction and I can undo something. I can split the 4b and the 28 apart. Well, how do you do that? Well, I have to find something that they share in common. They both have a factor of 4. I can divide both of them by 4. But I'm not going to divide them. I'm simply going to rewrite it so that I can see that 4 is going to be multiplied by b to get 4b, because 4b divided by 4 is, as you see, b. And 28 divided by 4 is 7. So if I put a 7 here, you can see that I could multiply that way and multiply that way and end up back to the original format. So I can go back and forth with the distributive property. There's one last thing that I need to be able to do. So now I'm coming to the place where geometry and algebra come together. We do a lot of area models in 6th grade, so what a great time to draw some out. As you notice, we've taken a rectangle that has an area of 24. It could have been a 6 by 4 or a 2 by 12, but in this case it's a 3 by 8. We've split that 24, and it could have been split differently, but it needs to be split so that whatever is inside can also become a factor on the outside. So notice, if I split that 8 up into 2 plus 6, then part of my 24 is a 3 by 2. And the other part of my 24 is a 3 by 6. I could have split it up differently. Let's see what that might look like. So what if I had said I want that 8 to be a 3, and a 5. I have to move my line over just a little bit. Okay, let's see if that can equal 24 inside. 3 times 3, 9. 3 times, whoops, stylus is not working very well. 3 times 5 is 15. Do 9 plus 15 equal 24? Yes, they do. So as you can see, I can have different variations of that. Now, when we get into algebra, sometimes we don't know one of our factors. In this case, we could say, oh, we knew that the width was 8 and that part of the length was 13, but we don't know the other part. So how would that look? Again, it's the same idea, but I can only tell you what part of the area is. So I can multiply the 8 times the x and get 8x. Remember drawing these little loops to show that I'm multiplying what's outside the parentheses by what's inside the parentheses. I can then multiply the 8 by the 13 and get 104. And that gives me a simplification, a simplified version, as 8x plus 104. So there you have it. We have 3 things that we can do with the distributive property. And then we get on to combining like terms in our next lesson.